Hello students. Today's lesson is going to be about non-defining relative clauses, so please open your books to page 66. And let's read our first story for today. The Elephant and the Rancher. A rancher who was working in the bush came across a small herd of about 20 elephants. The leader of the herd, which is usually the largest, oldest, and the most aggressive female elephant, attacked him and he fell off his horse. Later, rescuers found the rancher, whose leg was broken. The same elephant was standing over him. The rancher told his rescuers that the elephant had lifted him with her trunk and placed him under a tree, where he was protected from the sun. For the rest of the day, she watched over him, brushing him gently with her trunk every so often. So first, we will answer the question, how did the elephant save the rancher's life? What do you think, according to the text? So let's see. It placed him under a tree out of the sun and guarded him. So now, pay attention to these highlighted parts of the text. So why are they important? Why are they highlighted? It's because these are the non-defining relative clauses, which is our topic for today. So now let's move to grammar focus and read it. You use non-defining relative clauses to give extra information about the person or thing you are talking about. The sentence makes sense without it. So let's see. Here we have an example from the text. It's a rancher who was working in the bush came across a small herd. So if we remove this clause here, the sentence would be like, a rancher came across a small herd. So it makes perfect sense, but here we have some extra information that the clause is giving us about a rancher, as we said here. Start and end a non-defining relative clause with a comma. So here we have a comma at the beginning and at the end. Use the relative pronouns who, which, where, and whose, but don't use that. So we use that in defining relative clauses. And now let's see something more about relative pronouns. So we can use who to talk about people, which to talk about things or animals, whose to talk about the person or thing that something belongs to, and where to talk about place. So here we have examples for every pronoun that we mentioned. So let's see the first one. My grandfather, who is 87. So here we used who because my grandfather is a person. Then the next one. My next door neighbor, whose children go to school with ours, has just bought a new car. So in this case, we used whose because we are referring to the person that something belongs to. In this case, it's my next door neighbors. So it gives us information that his children go to school with ours. Then we have the house, which is very big, is also very cold. The house is a thing, and we said for things we use relative pronoun which. And the last one is city park. Where we used to go has been closed down. City park is a place, and we said for place, if we are referring to a place, we use relative pronoun where. Okay, so now let's go back to our book and go to our next task. Complete story B with relative clauses from A to F Then listen and check. Okay, so we have relative clauses here, which we have to put in the right order in these blank spots here. So let's begin. The gorilla and the toddler. An American boy. So an American boy is a person, and we said that we use relative pronoun who for person. But we have two of those. So is it C or E? An American boy who is now 21 years old, or an American boy who was unconscious? So C is the right answer. An American boy who is now 21 years old owes his life to a gorilla at Brookfield Zoo. When he was 3 years old, his family took him to the zoo. He wanted a better view of the gorillas, so he climbed a wall and fell 6 meters into the gorilla cage. So the gorilla cage is a place, and we said when we are referring to a place, we use relative pronoun where. But we also have two of those: where he made a complete recovery, or where a female gorilla was feeding her baby. What do you think? It is F, where a female gorilla was feeding her baby. The gorilla. The gorilla is an animal, and we said for animals we use relative pronoun which. So let's put B here. The gorilla, which was called Binti Jua, went over to the boy. Then we have the boy, again, a person. Then we put the remaining relative clause that begins with who here. Who was unconscious. Then the gorilla. Now we have answer A or answer D. So the gorilla whose baby was still in her arms, or where he made a complete recovery. So obviously we will put A here. The gorilla, whose baby was still in her arms, lifted the boy up gently and carried him to the door. The boy spent 4 days in hospital, where he made a complete recovery. Binti Jua is still at Brookfield Zoo near Chicago. So now that we've completed our task, let's listen to the story and check our answers.
CD2. Track 43. The Gorilla and the Toddler. An American boy, who is now 21 years old, owes his life to a gorilla at Brookfield Zoo. When he was 3 years old, his family took him to the zoo. He wanted a better view of the gorillas, so he climbed a wall and fell 6 meters into the gorilla cage, where a female gorilla was feeding her baby. The gorilla, which was called Binti Jua, went over to the boy, who was unconscious. Then the gorilla, whose baby was still in her arms, lifted the boy up gently and carried him to the door. The boy spent 4 days in hospital, where he made a complete recovery. Binti Jua is still at Brookfield Zoo near Chicago.
Okay, so we see that we've done this task correctly. So we can move to our next exercise. Read the extra information from story C. What do you think happened? So this is the story C, and here we have extra information. Todd Andrews lived next to the beach. The shark was 5 meters long. Todd's friend was surfing close by. Todd's right leg was now in the shark's mouth. Dolphins had been playing in the waves nearby, and surgeons managed to save his leg. So now we will read the story to see what happened. The surfer, the shark, and the dolphins. It was a perfect day for surfing off the coast of California. Todd Andrews, who lived next to the beach, was out on his surfboard. Without warning, something hit him from under the water. Todd knew immediately that it was a shark. He got back on his board, but the shark bit him on the back. Todd's friend saw the huge shark and at first thought it was a whale. Todd was kicking the shark with his free leg and didn't see the dolphins. Suddenly, the shark let go of his leg. The dolphins had surrounded the injured surfer and were protecting him from the shark. 3 friends helped Todd back on his board and reached the beach. A helicopter transported him to hospital. 6 weeks later, Todd was back in the water. So here we see what the story is about. But we'll need this extra information for our next task because we have to complete the story with non-defining relative clauses using the extra information that we mentioned in the last exercise. So here we have extra information and we have to make a non-defining relative clause out of them. So we won't read the story again because we've done that already, so we will go to complete the task now. So the first one is done. Todd Andrews, who lived next to the beach. This is the extra information. Then we have, he got back on his board, but the shark. We have, the shark was 5 meters long. So what do you think? How will we make non-defining relative clause? So instead of shark, we will put what? Which relative pronoun? Because it's an animal, it would be which. So it would be which was 5 meters long. He got back on his board, but the shark, which was 5 meters long, bit him on the back. Then we have Todd's friend. Todd's friend is a person. And we said for person, we use relative pronoun who, so the answer would be who was surfing close by. Saw the huge shark and at first thought it was a whale. Then we have Todd, and Todd's right leg was now in the shark's mouth. So what do you think? The answer is, the answer is Todd, whose right leg was now in the shark's mouth, was kicking the shark with his free leg and didn't see the dolphins. So now we have the dolphins and had been playing in the waves nearby. So what do we had to add? Which relative pronoun? It would be which had been playing in the waves nearby. And the last one is a helicopter transported him to hospital. Hospital is a place, so we have relative pronoun where the surgeons managed to save his leg. So now that we have completed this task, let's listen to the story and check our answers.
CD2. Track 44.
The surfer, the shark, and the dolphins. It was a perfect day for surfing off the coast of California. Todd Andrews, who lived next to the beach, was out on his surfboard. Without warning, something hit him from under the water. Todd knew immediately that it was a shark. He got back on his board, but the shark, which was 5 meters long, bit him on the back. Todd's friend, who was surfing close by, saw the huge shark and at first thought it was a whale. Todd, whose right leg was now in the shark's mouth, was kicking the shark with his free leg and didn't see the dolphins, which had been playing in the waves nearby. Suddenly, the shark let go of his leg. The dolphins had surrounded the injured surfer and were protecting him from the shark. 3 friends helped Todd get back on his board and reach the beach. A helicopter transported him to hospital, where surgeons managed to save his leg. 6 weeks later, Todd was back in the water.
Okay, so we have heard the story and we see that we have done the task correctly again. And that would be all for this lesson. Thank you for your attention and see you next time. Bye.